I'm Nicea DeGering.
And I'm Doug Jessop. Everyone has a story. Stories have power. They help us understand each other.
And these stories deserve to be passed down. It is time for Family Heritage Stories.
Welcome to Family Heritage Stories, where we help people understand where they came from. Things like traditions, values, and culture.
How are those stories passed down from generation to generation? Through words, through deeds, through stories.
We all benefit from heroes among us. Now, they're going to say, it's just part of the job. But it's more than that. It's time for Hero Salute Stories. Hi guys, this is Doug Jessop with another episode of Hero Salute Stories. And I have to admit, I've been waiting to interview this guy, Bill Hill. So Bill, you are an incredible person that a lot of people don't understand what you and your brothers did. You guys are the most recent recipient of the Congressional Gold Medal.
That's correct.
And you served in a group called Dust Off.
Yes.
So what's Dust Off? What did you guys do?
It's flying out to evacuate wounded and not having any guns on the aircraft. Unlike medevac that had M60s on the door, and I think the 101st Airborne, we were assigned a med command. So we just get our mission, get in the aircraft, go get them, bring them back to the hospital. That's what we did.
Well, and you and I talked a little bit about this before. So some of the other brothers that I've interviewed with Dust Off, you know, they had some helicopter training here in the States and everything, but you had kind of a unique story. So let's first start. Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Enfield, Connecticut.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I went
Okay.
to high school there, and a couple of community colleges. And then I went to Central Connecticut State College. And I became a DJ on the radio show there.
There you go, fellow
you.
DJ. All right.
Unfortunately, I wasn't paying attention to my studies.
Well, yeah, okay.
So I ended up, not flunking out, but didn't do well first semester.
Yeah.
So I went to Springfield, Massachusetts, and I enlisted in the Army. And before I enlisted, I told them I wanted to fly helicopters. And they said, okay, we'll give you a test. If you pass it, we guarantee you flight training. So I took the test, passed.
About how many missions do you think you ended up doing? How many hours?
Well, for every 25 combat missions, you get an air medal. Let me see if I have a picture of it. Yeah, here's my air medal. So this says 8, but that was because the Department of Army, that's another long story. They didn't send me this medal right away. Okay.
I've seen
But
those.
it's got my
before.
name in the back.
Okay, yep.
I had 32 of these.
Whoa.
So that would be combat missions 35 times 32, whatever that comes out to.
I'm not a math major, but that's a lot.
Yeah, and that's just combat. You know, there were other missions that we went on that weren't related to combat, just evacuating people. And this is the Vietnamese Cross of Gallantry with the Silver Star. And Tom Landis and myself were on an aircraft doing a night hoist operation.
Mm-hmm.
The Tiger forces for the ARVN soldiers, the South Vietnamese Army, they were surrounded by the NVA, and I was a Peter pilot. Tom was the aircraft commander, and we went over the contact area, lowered the jungle penetrator. The wounded guy got on, and then the NVA started shooting at us.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, so Tom got wounded. He took a bullet in the leg.
Yep.
And I had the aircraft. I got the guy up and on board, and we just, beat feet out of there. And so Tom was the reason that I got this, because I was on the ship with him. But this is, the Vietnamese Cross of Gallantry with the Silver Star. And my bronze medal.
to me, I really, really believe in the power of stories.
Mhm.
And the reason why this show exists is actually because of Dust Off. Because, a woman contacted me and said, "Hey, my husband's got this reunion coming up, and could we, get these interviews?" And I had no idea what it was for or anything, and so we did it. And the guys told me some incredible stories. And then we posted it, and you guys somehow found the stories. It's like, wow. What does it mean to you all these years later to be able to have contact with the guys that you served with so long ago?
All this started a short while ago, all of us getting in contact with each other. And I think it's great. I haven't seen Jim Beeson in years.
I was shocked when, I see a couple comments on this thing. So as a news guy, I called up Mara and Jim and said, "Okay, does anybody know who these people are?" And so, "Oh yeah, I've been looking for them." So I'm so glad to meet you. So, and
Same
thank
here.
you so much for your service.
Thank you for your time.
With another episode of Hero Salute Stories, and this gentleman, a great American hero, a pilot for Dust Off, Bill Hill. I'm Doug Jessop.
Thank you for joining us for this special episode of Family Heritage Stories. If you would like to help us continue with this great and important programming, please visit herosalutestories.org.
Ladies and gentlemen, please help me and Riley welcome her daddy, Petty Officer Michael Brown, home from Afghanistan. He's been gone for 8.5 months.
There's a special bond between grandparents and grandkids.
Tell me a story about your grandma or grandpa.
Grandpa Guy, he loved birds, and when we would go visit their home in Petaluma, California, he had all sorts of birds, guinea hens and peacocks and parrots and all sorts of birds. And my grandmother had flowers, and so we would go and have flora and fauna days at their home, and I loved it. And they actually lived, my grandfather lived until I was married and had my second child.
Tell me about one of your grandmas.
Okay. Can it be a great grandma?
Sure.
Oh, I love my great grandma, Elvie. She lived until I was 14, and I would sit by at the foot of her, how do we say it? And I would listen to her tell stories of when she was a little girl, and she wrote 40 years worth of diaries every single day, and she wrote poetry. So several times I would say, "Grandma Elvie, will you write me a poem?" And so I have several poems of her poems written about me, and I think that's just special.
Yeah.
Okay, now I'm going to put you in a time machine.
A time machine.
Time machine, okay? Don't get dizzy.
Okay.
Okay. 20, 30 years from now, I've got one of your granddaughters here in front of this camera. And I ask her, "Tell me about Grandma Julie. How do you want to be remembered?"
Dancing to rhythm and blues and Earth, Wind, and Fire. And reading books. I think that's what she would remember. Thanks.
Love it. That's getting on TV.
Oh.
Just so you know. Yeah. Broadcasting from Lanny Bernard Gallery, you're watching Family Heritage Stories. We'll be right back. Family Heritage Stories features examples of stories from the past to help shape the future.
If you would like help saving your stories with a private interview, contact Krista at fedorafoundation.org for pricing and availability.
Steve Haga, so what do you call a cow that's twitchy? Beef jerky.
Okay, if you've got more, keep going.
Steve Haga, what do you call a lamb that sings and dances? Lady Baba.
Everybody comes from somewhere.
What does heritage mean to you?
With me today, Krista Numbers. Now, there's a reason why I have you on today, and it just so happens to do a little bit of a pinch this and a pinch that.
Okay.
Okay. Tell me a little bit about your grandma or grandpa.
Okay. Well, going off of the pinch and the pinch,
Mm-hmm.
no measuring involved.
Okay.
We just kind of add what we want to until we get the recipes where we want them. So, cooking and eating, that's the family heritage that I think I'm here to talk about.
A lot of the time, traditions, values, and culture are passed down through food. And your family has very much a food tradition. So tell me a little bit more about that.
Every core memory I have growing up involves food in some way, whether it was eating together as a big extended family, and that may have included people that I had just met, right? Everybody was family around the table, to preparing the food in the kitchen, grandma and grandpa. My dad loved to cook. So yeah, food is a big part of my family heritage.
So what's the makings of a good recipe?
Oh gosh, can I be cheesy and say love?
Go for it.
Really, it's a labor of love, I think, is to find the best ingredients, the freshest ingredients, while also just keeping it simple and remembering that it really is about gathering people together and breaking bread. That's the important part.
Ciao, sono Alice Frigerio, state guardando Storie di tradizioni familiari. Hi, I'm Alice Frigerio, you're watching Family Heritage Stories.
I'm Doug Jessop.
And I'm Nicea DeGering. Family Heritage Stories airs Sunday night at 11 on ABC4.
Did you know you can get help with a private interview with Nicea or me?
Contact Krista at fedorafoundation.org to schedule your interview. Everyone loves a great success story.
Hi guys, this is Doug Jessop with Nate Jones with Clear. And today I'm really happy to say that we're doing a success story. And this guy is definitely a success story. So Nate, you've got a whole bunch of products here and you started a company 20 something years ago? How
25 years ago, quarter of a century now.
Wow, congrats.
Yeah.
Company is called?
Clear.
Okay.
Spelled Xlear.
Okay. And you make a bunch of different, now granted, okay, disclaimer, I use all these products, have for years, but where did it all start? What was the product that kind of started the whole journey?
The product that started the whole journey was the nasal spray.
Okay.
It's just a daily hygiene. We brush our teeth, we use mouthwash, we wash our hands with soap and water. But really most of the pathogens that come into our body, bacteria, viruses, pollen, dander, all of that, most of it comes in through our nose.
Right.
And it just makes sense. And my dad actually was the doctor who first started utilizing a xylitol sugar molecule that blocks bacteria and viruses from adhering to the tissue in the upper airway in a nasal spray.
So for people that don't understand, what is xylitol?
It's just sugar. Looks like sugar, tastes like sugar, but it has a different chemical compound than most of the sugars that we're familiar with, which are sorbitol, sucrose, glucose, fructose, sorbitol, mannitol, maltitol. It's missing one carbon atom, and so the bacteria can't metabolize it as effectively.
Now, from what I remember, it actually came about because there was this village in Finland during, I think it was World War I or World War II.
Well, it was really the whole country of Finland, but when you look at it, it's all a village.
Yeah.
I'm
Well,
kidding,
okay.
I'm kidding.
Yeah,
People
yeah.
from Finland.
But
Helsinki's a nice city.
yeah, okay.
So
Well,
is Turku.
yeah, well, tell me the rest of the story, though. What was the deal?
No, it was that during World War II, they didn't have a supply of sugar, and so they started making xylitol. And after the war was over, they went back to just using regular sugar. But about 20 years later, in the 60s, the dentists started noticing that this group of kids, this age group that had come of age when their teeth had come in during the war, when they were eating xylitol, they didn't have tooth decay. And that was something that they were looking at. And so that's when they started doing research and looking at how xylitol prevented tooth decay.
That's a big deal.
It's a huge deal.
Huge deal. So you go from this group, so you find out that there's all this stuff with regard to helping with cavities, okay? That's great and wonderful, but I don't understand how in the world you guys go from cavities to nasal spray.
So in the studies where the dentists were looking at how it prevents tooth decay, one of the things that they collected, all the data they collected in these studies, was that the kids who were chewing xylitol gum, not only were they not getting tooth decay, they were also getting 42% fewer respiratory infections.
Oh.
And in 1998, there was a paper that was published in the Journal of Antimicrobial Chemotherapy where they showed that what xylitol is doing is it's actually binding up on receptor sites and it's blocking the bacteria, the strep pneumo, H. flu, and MCAT in that study, from adhering to the tissue. And my dad read that, and when he read that, he said, well, if chewing gum makes you lose 42% of your respiratory infections, these respiratory infections start in the nose. This is the method of action. So he put it into a saline spray and started squirting it up their nose, and the kids stopped getting sick. I mean, it was like night and day.
So what kind of sicknesses did it stop?
Well, he was originally looking at ear infections in babies. Wow. That's what the dental studies had actually reported was ear infections. But most of the kids who have chronic ear infections are also going to have issues with allergies or asthma and other upper respiratory illnesses, because chances are pretty high, like 99%, that they have a bacterial biofilm that is what's causing that chronic issue to happen. And so, when he started using it on these kids with chronic respiratory infections, they would clean out all that crud out of their upper airway and they'd stop getting sick.
Yeah.
And it cleaned up, and a lot of them, it cleaned up their allergies. It cleaned up a lot of their other issues that they had.
Well, admittedly, I use the product because of allergies, but the other thing is when we had that fun little COVID crap, it was interesting. I would take it a lot, and I was, at the TV station and everything a lot, and my family and everybody were pretty amazed that I didn't get sick. It's like, well, but so you go from the nasal sprays, and then you started expanding. And so the nasal sprays were 25 years ago. What was your second product?
Our second product was actually chewing gum with xylitol.
Oh, okay.
And that was simply because we had enough people that were calling us and saying, well, I'm buying your nasal spray and I'd like to buy some xylitol gum. Why don't you sell xylitol gum? And so that was we started selling xylitol gum, and pretty quickly, even within a couple of years, we were the #1 selling natural, 100% xylitol sweetened gum in the country.
Out of a little company right here in Utah.
Yeah.
To see this complete interview with Nate Jones, go to xlear.com, and that's spelled
xlear.com.
Do your kids and grandkids know your stories? This is Doug Jessop. Part of the reason we do Family Heritage Stories is to give ideas and examples of how to share those stories. If you need help, we're here to help give you a private interview with either myself or Nicea DeGering. For availability and pricing, contact Krista at fedorafoundation.org.
You learn a lot about traditions, values, and culture when you travel.
It's time for Vacation Locations. When you think of Rome, you probably think of the Colosseum. But did you know that there is actually a country inside the city of Rome called Vatican City? They even have their own police and the Swiss Guard. We came on what was deemed a slow day with only 10,000 people. A normal day is closer to 30,000 people. Artwork abounds inside the Vatican Museum. One of Raphael's most widely known paintings, The School of the Athens, is not painted on a canvas. It's actually painted directly on the wall. By the way, check out the self-portrait Raphael put on the painting. He's the guy wearing the red robe and the black hat. My favorite part was visiting St. Peter's Basilica. Michelangelo's Pieta sculpture was breathtaking. Here's something you might not know. In 1497, he was in his early 20s, and this sculpture was his audition to do more sculptures and paintings. I'd say he passed. Another factoid, all of the art at the Basilica are mosaics. Of course, with a name like St. Peter's Basilica, yes, the church is built upon Peter's tomb. Broadcasting from St. Peter's Square, and yeah, those Vatican guard guys, was first clue. I'm Doug Jessop.
State guardando Storie di tradizioni familiari. Grazie.
Did you know that you can get help saving your family heritage stories with a private interview with me or Doug?
Contact Krista at fedorafoundation.org to schedule your interview.
Objects with stories are treasures remembered. It's time now for a visit with Dr. Micah Christensen.
With me today, Dr. Micah Christensen with Anthony's Fine Art.
This is a menorah from the 1860s made in Poland. Now, the menorah is used to celebrate Hanukkah. In 168 BCE, the Syrian emperor conquered Israel. And many of the Jewish rulers and the Maccabee family, which were the ones who led a rebellion against this invasion, went into the caves and brought with them some of the sacred objects. One of the only things that they didn't think of was enough oil to light the lamps. And they had oil for only 1 day. But miraculously, according to the book of Maccabees, the oil lasted for 8 days. And to this day, 8 candles for 8 days of Hanukkah. There is a 9th place for a candle, and that's called the shamas. What you would do if you were celebrating Hanukkah on the first night is you would put a candle on the far right, and you would put a candle in the shamas. And if we're imagining the candles are here, and you would light on the first night the candle with the shamas. And the next night, you would light the next candle, and the next night until all 8 are filled.
Why do you think that this item would be so important?
Jewish population exploded in Europe during the 18th and 19th centuries. And they became a threat to a lot of governments. And they were constantly having their homes ransacked and their property taken away from them. So there were small things that people could take with them and pass down from one family member to another, or even take across national borders. You were only allowed, when you crossed into the United States, a couple of suitcases. This would have fit in a suitcase. It would have been probably one of the larger or more precious objects that was carried. And the family that we got it from on the East Coast had said they'd had it for many generations.
Everyone has a story.
Sometimes those stories are told through music.
Oh, I'm on it. I'm down.
Una mattina mi sono svegliato, oh bella ciao, bella ciao, bella ciao, ciao, ciao. Una mattina mi sono svegliato e ho trovato l'invasor. Oh partigiano, portami via, oh bella ciao, bella ciao, bella ciao, ciao, ciao. Partigiano, portami via, che mi sento di morire. E se io muoio da partigiano, oh bella ciao, bella ciao, bella ciao, ciao, ciao. E se io muoio da partigiano, tu mi devi seppellire e seppellire lassù in montagna, oh bella ciao, bella ciao, bella ciao, ciao, ciao. E seppellire lassù in montagna, sotto l'ombra di un bel fiore. Tutte le genti che passeranno, oh bella ciao, bella ciao, bella ciao, ciao, ciao. Tutte le genti che passeranno mi diranno che bel fiore. E questo è il fiore del partigiano, oh bella ciao, bella ciao, bella ciao, ciao, ciao. E questo è il fiore del partigiano, morto per la libertà. E se io muoio da partigiano, oh bella ciao, bella ciao, bella ciao, ciao, ciao. E se io muoio da partigiano, tu mi devi seppellire.
What makes you smile? Spry Natural Xylitol mints make me smile. I think it might help you too.
It's our honor to be able to help people remember where they came from.
The Fedora Foundation supports the collection, preservation, and distribution of diverse stories of traditions, values, and culture, right here on TV and online as well at familyheritagestories.org.
How do you want to be remembered? With another episode of Family Heritage Stories, I'm Nicea DeGering.
And I'm Doug Jessop.
Ciao, ciao.